Hey, Kevin, can you hear me?
Hi, Connie.
Hey, how are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good to see you. I'm good. I'm good. I need a session with you after all this is over.
Sounds good.
Oh my God, I am drowning right now, Kevin. So I've been tripping over my words. I have to do my ABCs and loosen up my mouth. Yeah, Keau
Sure.
offered to go first, so I'm like,
Okay.
okay, take it. So, do you need me to share my presentation?
Yeah, so you'll share your own screen. Um,
Okay,
I'll be monitoring two platforms. So the Zoom and then the
got
Huvo
it.
platform.
Yeah.
Last session, people decided to ask questions live instead of typing them in the chat. So we'll see
Okay.
what happens, but I'll manage the chat for both of you guys and let you know if people have questions.
All
Generally,
right.
questions have been going at the end.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm getting myself all situated. This morning I woke up and I don't know, I was messing with those benefits and I don't know what I did, Kevin. I completely lost my volume in the computer and I'm like, not today.
Keau, are you good to go?
Yeah, we're good.
Awesome.
Hey, Cal,
Hey, Connie.
how are you?
I've been on back-to-back calls, just trying to keep everything spinning.
Yeah, that's kind of our life, right? It's nonstop.
Okay, I need to take deep breaths. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna mute you guys just so
Okay, well, it is 12 o'clock exactly now, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'm sure we'll have more people joining us, but welcome. My name is Kevin McMacken. I am the Director of Strategic Partnerships for the San Diego and Imperial County Regional Consortium, and I have been asked to be your Zoom host today and to support the presenters. Welcome to the sector profile presentations for health and also life sciences and biotech. We're happy to have Keau and Connie join us for those presentations today. Just a couple of reminders before we get started. We would ask that each of you please keep yourselves muted. If you do have questions, feel free to enter them into the Huva Q&A or the chat, which is right next to your video. Depending on the size of the group, we may be able to ask live questions or we may end up just using the chat. For your information, we will also be uploading presentation materials and the recording of this breakout, which will be available to everybody after the conference. Our final reminder will be also to, after the breakout, to please make sure that you click on the button to rate the session to provide a brief survey responses to give us feedback. So thank you everybody again for joining us. And with that, we'll go ahead and turn the time over to Keau to introduce himself and share his presentation. Oh, you're muted, Keau.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Let me just stop my video and start share. We've prepared about a half an hour presentation, so we'll take questions right after we're done, if that's okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Keau Wong, Regional Director for Employer Engagement, Life Sciences, and Biotechnology in San Diego and Imperial County, representing the California Community Colleges. Today, I'd like to present our 2019-2020 sector profile, updates, findings, and recommendations. Thank you for joining us. So just a quick overview of the presentation. We'll go over the sector profile and current trends, the research methodologies and findings, and then finally some sector recommendations for your programs to consider. Okay, so what is life sciences and biotechnology? Well, the life sciences industry is all encompassing and really is an umbrella term for companies, businesses, research institutions dedicated to improving our everyday living. So these are some primary areas of industrial life sciences: environmental sciences, clean air, clean water, pharmaceuticals, the drugs that we take, biomedical devices, our insulin pumps, our pacemakers, our DNA sequencers, nutraceuticals, CBD, cannabidiols is probably the most trending nutraceutical right now in the market today. Cosmeceuticals, cosmetic giant L'Oreal just reported almost $40 billion in total sales for 2019. They currently have a partnership with UCSD for new product development. Food and agriculture, better food, less pesticides. And then biotechnology, which is also under the life sciences umbrella. So for biotechnology, I just want you to think about fueling, feeding, and healing the world. That's biotechnology in a nutshell. We're using our knowledge of a biological process to come up with new technologies or products. And ultimately, this development of new technologies or products contribute to global improvement. And looking at our industry partners, it's really a multi-sector workforce collaboration all under one roof. So this includes facilities management, engineering, legal, compliance, supply chain and logistics, full business division. I mean, the company wouldn't be there without an entrepreneurial mindset. And we'll go over these three main areas that we focus on at the colleges. So the training we focus on at the colleges is really in alignment with the product life cycle. So for early research and discovery, the courses concentrate on lab skills and techniques, as well as the business requirements associated with the early product phase. This could be intellectual properties, preclinical workflows, and really just preparing for an FDA submission. The FDA clinical trial process is covered in the development phase coursework. This includes statistical coursework, experimental develops, and really everything you need to accomplish a successful FDA trial, proving full safety and efficacy of your product. And moving into the approval phase, coursework in manufacturing, quality, and compliance cover the product phase, post FDA. So that was a real quick summary of the sector. So now let's go into our labor market information and look over the data and trends. Okay, so starting off with the Imperial LMI data, we're looking at around 654 sector employees working at 51 sector businesses. Average earnings from entry level all the way up to CEO looks to be around $62,000 a year. Very important for our sector, Imperial Valley is the global leader in biofuels, a huge operation out there in Calipatria, a very important work that they're doing with multiple partners. Okay, and just some other sector interests in Imperial Valley. We've got agriculture out there, over 500,000 acres of active crop production. Renewable energy, 2019, over $7.3 billion reported in investments in Imperial Valley. This includes biofuels, this includes wind, solar, geothermal. And then the big one, thinking about environmental restoration, air quality, cleaning up the rivers, restoration of the Salton Sea. These are all big areas that biotech has a hand in. Okay, let's move into San Diego's LMI data. A little bigger, we're looking at 1,500 businesses, over 60,000 employees. Average earnings from top to bottom look to be around 152,000 per year. San Diego is a cluster. Over 13% of the statewide business in the sector is done in San Diego. Over 16% of the statewide employment for the sector is in San Diego. So a good place to be if you're in life sciences and biotech. And the calculated job multiplier is 4.57. So what this means is for every job that's created in the sector, 3.57 jobs are created in ancillary sectors. This is business, this is legal, this is advanced transportation, this is food and beverage. So really good for economic health. Okay, so in current regional news, this is a report from Jones Lang and LaSalle looking at venture capital investments for the region. So as of Q2, we're looking at $1.8 billion in VCIs invested right here in San Diego. $1.2 billion has been dedicated to life sciences. This is based on 72 transactions. And just to give you a reference point, the 5-year average since 2015 is $1.9 billion. So we're on record pace right now as far as VCIs in the region. So what does this all mean? So venture capital investments, these have been turning into real estate transactions. This is new lab space. This is expanded lab space. And this lab space needs people. It needs scientists. It needs our technicians. So this means additional workforce development. And if people are working, people are earning good wages and working on problems with the pandemic, this all adds up to increased economic health. And these sector activities have been observed not only regionally, but statewide. Our good partners at the California Life Sciences Association just released the 2020 sector report, and we're seeing increases across the board with over 346 new companies established since 2018, totaling 3,766 sector companies statewide and counting. Okay, for the next few slides, let's go over the Centers of Excellence Sector Analysis Report. Okay, so just quickly going over the research methodology. The COE released the Sector Analysis Report in 2018 with initial findings and recommendations for the colleges. For the past 2 years, we've been investigating and verifying these COE findings with all of our stakeholders. This includes employers, trade organizations, faculty, deans, etc. We then shared our findings with the COE and collaboratively developed sector-specific recommendations that we are now sharing with you today. And here's a cover of the 2018 sector report. Please let us know if you need a copy. Okay, the first question from the report we'd like to cover are the knowledge, skills, and abilities, KSAs, and have they been verified for the sector? So looking at our regional labor market gaps, let's take into consideration the KSAs needed for this specific aggregated top code that includes biological technicians, biomanufacturing associates, and various personnel that work in the quality subsector. And as you can see, this is a substantial labor market gap with over 1,100 unfilled positions in the region. Okay, so these positions have been a focal point of our sector advisory meetings for years, and not only regionally, but statewide and nationally as well. So for over a decade plus, a consortium between community college faculty members and industry partners nationwide have developed core skill standards for these specific sector positions. These standards were developed using TACT and NSF supported grant monies, utilizing regional, statewide, and national partnerships to verify and validate these KSAs. As you can see to the right, you'll see an example of each competency area and how that specifically breaks down task by task. So these skill standards cover multiple sector positions with specific concentrations for the jobs observed in our current labor market shortages. This includes biotechnologists, as well as specialized personnel in biomanufacturing and quality. So the clinical laboratory division is another labor market gap we focus on. We have MLT programs at both Southwestern and Miramar colleges, as well as phlebotomy programs offered throughout the region. And like other medically based programs, the clinical laboratory division has specific training criteria and examinations in place. Certification and licensing boards such as ASCP and the California Department of Public Health work with your college programs to verify that these specific training requirements have been fulfilled, and ultimately the students need to pass licensing exams for their clinical professions. So we're focusing on three main positions. There's a phlebotomist. This is how they get started in the clinical laboratory. They move on with their 2-year requirements in medical lab technician training. And if they decide to move on further than that, they can finish up a 4-year degree and apply for licensing as a clinical laboratory scientist. And here's some of our regional industry partners that we work with at our colleges. Thank you so much for being great advisors, great partners, and hiring our students. And here's another slide showcasing our partnering trade organizations, our national consortiums, and our board certifying partners. Again, couldn't do any of this without them. Thank you so much for being great partners. Okay, the next challenge that we observed in the sector analysis report is the lack of visible biotech below the I-8 corridor. So we investigated the I-8 corridor from SeaWorld to Holtville, and really there's a fair amount of biotech opportunities hidden in plain sight. For example, we've counted over 30 plus medical reference laboratories. This includes sites such as Quest Diagnostics, LabCorp, Sharp Medical. All of these reference laboratories employ our students. And there's lots of science in food manufacturing. Fermentation is the heart and soul of biotechnology, and San Diego is very famous for its fermented beverages. There are over 180 breweries in the county and over 50 breweries south of the 8 freeway. Both Southwestern and Mesa College have solid investments in fermentation sciences and are really leading the charge for emerging credit coursework. Now, focusing on Imperial Valley, ag tech and environmental sciences have a critical community role in areas such as crop production, alternative fuel research and manufacturing, and really most important, environmental health. Clean air, clean water, can't live without it. Now, the 8 freeway is our upper threshold for measuring, with the national border being our lower threshold. We really should be measuring into Baja, Mexico, and working more on binational partnerships. Multi-sector specific companies in medical diagnostics, medical devices, and bioinformatics are right over the border, and there's lots of them. And hot off the press, the Manchester Gateway Bayfront property was just purchased for $1.5 billion and will be dedicated to the life sciences sector. The current name for this campus is the RAD. That's short for the Research and Development District. This campus is less than 2 miles away from City College and less than 20 miles away from both Grossmont and Southwestern. Okay, so the big aggregated challenge for our sector's labor market, we'll start with supply gap. We don't have enough students to fill the outstanding positions. Low enrollment, there's also an observed correlation between low enrollment and a thriving job market. We'll go into that. And finally, the ultimate competency battle between our trained community college students versus other candidates with a bachelor's degree. Okay, so 3 main findings from the sector analysis report. Okay, first up, high labor market demand and the need to increase K-12 involvement. There's a few intertwining issues here we'd like to go over. The biggest and farthest upstream is the targeted K-12 student that we focus on in the sector. The K-12 students that participate in advanced STEM coursework are typically high achievers, they're very ambitious, and most of them set their sights on the 3 primary job titles and training pathways. This would be in engineering, this is a PhD level research scientist, and then the clinical positions, becoming a physician, a surgeon, animal vets, dentists, a pharmacist. These positions are very visible. They come with intellectual prestige, and for the most part, very predictable salary ranges. Okay, finding number 2, high labor market gap and small completion numbers. So interesting findings here. Because the labor market gap is so high, employers are aggressively looking for talent at all position levels and really just need individuals with minimal sector training that can provide coverage for specific laboratory shift work. And from there, our industry partners rely on standard operating procedures, internal training, and work instructions to satisfy their specific core competencies needed for commercial operations. So there's a few questions here. Is this good for the students? Mostly yes. Early industry experience, money in the bank, and continued lab training can always be viewed as a good thing. Will it provide upward mobility? So from the report findings, not enough. And this is really an area that needs more support, where students are able to learn and earn, where they're able to gain progressive industry experience while they're completing their academic credentials simultaneously, and hopefully debt-free. Okay, finding number 3, the bachelor's battle. So this has been an ongoing battle since the beginning of time for us. There are certain jobs in biotech, especially in R&D, where the individuals really need to understand the fundamentals of certain molecular systems, chemical reactions, and just being comfortable with researching publications and other specific advanced lab work. And this all takes time and training. There's no way around it. Biotech as a global industry is really young. It's only about 50 years old. And you think about it, the industry was started by PhD researchers, by physicians, by engineers who were looking to develop new marketable solutions. And so the training dogma used to always require a similar path from their employees. And this comes with some unforeseen issues observed in 3 different situations. So when post-bacs are hired for these middle skill jobs that we train for at the colleges, the learning curve is a little longer to get that individual up to speed due to the lack of training. Also, we observe a gap year with these individuals. And the scenario is that when post-bacs are hired for middle skill jobs, they usually take this position while they're applying for graduate school, medical school, etc., or they're moving on to another position or promotion within the company or across companies after the minimum HR probation period has been completed. So there's more turnover for that division, for that department. We'd like to increase the value stream for employers. And third, the sector data statewide shows about 15 to 20% of our enrolled students are post-bacs looking to upskill and get a job. So this additional training requirement, whether it's a semester or a year or 2, really isn't efficient for these individuals. They're losing out on earnings, and it's really unfortunate they didn't receive this training during their bachelor's degree. So based off of these findings, what can we do to support continuous improvement for our programs and really increase equity for our students? So let's start off, all the way upstream. we'd like to increase enrollment numbers and onboard more K-12 students and programs. So what's the value proposition that we can offer? From the perspective of an ambitious high school student, that individual wants to obtain their dream career with high accomplishment and as soon as possible, and hopefully with a very cost-effective approach. So knowing that, looking at options in dual enrollment, early college credits, these are very effective for students trying to reach their goals early on. Combine this with work-based learning and career exploration. I think students will get to experience their career environments. They'll get to build their resumes for future opportunities, all while completing their prerequisites for a fraction of the price. Okay, number 2, supply gaps and completions. Talk to any of your biotech faculty. They don't have students to place right now. The sector has been in such high demand, and really even more now with the current pandemic. When you're looking at completion rates, this can be complex, but the actionable item that we'd like to focus on is the ability to offer multiple course sections that tailor to our laboratory shift workers. For example, say your program places 18 first-year students at company X to cover their morning shift operations. For future planning, it would be a very safe bet to offer year 2 coursework at night, or using hybrid remote courses to increase accessibility. These are all good options, and really just keeping our students on a linear progression model. And number 3, bachelor's degree preferred. So for decades, we've been advocating for a culture change to happen with our industrial partners. And now we have a 4-year degree in the region that accelerates our biotech students into the post-bac workforce. The biomanufacturing bachelor's degree is cohort-based, and it's currently tailored to the 2nd and 3rd shift working professional. The Miracosta program is currently in their fourth cohort, averaging over 24 students per cohort. It's around 80% capacity. And the normalized job placement rate currently for all cohorts is at 100%. So this basically means that all students that graduated from the program and wanted a job in the sector got a sector job or a promotion. The bachelor's program start to finish is under $12,000. And most of our working students receive tuition reimbursements from their companies. So basically it was a free bachelor's degree for them. And for regional students looking at other options where maybe the commuting distance to Miracosta is an issue, the formulation of regional 2+2 agreements that supports the working student would offer high equity, impact, and value. A good example is Southwestern's NSF funded chemistry program. This is a great supported program for aspiring chemists looking to gain laboratory experience combined with paralleled academic training. This ultimately leads to advanced degrees at SDSU and future industry opportunities. We also see high impact 2+2 opportunities in Imperial County. The El Centro Outpost for San Diego State's a area where we'd like to develop future partnerships. A binational partnership with CETIS, as well as other area institutions, would all benefit the Imperial Valley College students, increasing equity and really reducing the need to move or super commute out of the valley. With these combined efforts, the ultimate goal is to increase our alumnus population in the sector, especially in the senior technical and management level positions. And this should create a robust hiring feedback loop for our students and programs. Again, here's a look at our aggregated labor market for both clinical and non-clinical middle skill positions in the sector. As you can see, there's over 1,600 openings with over 1,300 unfilled positions. There's definitely a need to increase capacity to meet these needs. Okay, doing a livable wage comparison. Looking at attainable jobs for both our clinical and non-clinical positions, the average range for these jobs are between $19 and $25 an hour. This is well over the $15.99 hourly rate for livable wage in San Diego County. And then looking at the same comparisons for pathway jobs, the average range is between $33 and $45 an hour for sector-specific jobs. This is double and triple the renewable waitress area of Connie. So good bet to be in the sector. And here's some further confirmation. In August, the COE just released their job resiliency report. This analyzed the effects of both the recession and our current global disruption. And from the report, they found that sector job areas are resilient. And when you're looking at jobs that are focused in quality, these careers are both recession and pandemic proof. So we base our work and infrastructure off of the regional model. And you can see this really characterizes our efforts from start to finish in a combination of strong workforce and guided pathways. And based off the regional model, we've created example career pathways. This pathway is for a student interested in either biotech or biomanufacturing. This track can start as early as high school with dual enrollment and articulation initiatives. This leads into parallel learn and earn supported programs with linear job progression. And then ultimately, the student will be receiving a bachelor's degree in biomanufacturing with multiple years of experience under their belt. This should catapult our alumnus into a senior technical or management position, and hopefully a very nice hiring feedback loop for our students and programs. Furthermore, we are developing graduate partnerships for our biotech institutions, which hopefully will fast track industry-sponsored master's and doctorate work. So here's a similar career pathway for an individual looking for a career in quality. This student can finish their lower division credentials at Miramar College and then possibly transfer into the CSU Global Quality Bachelor's Program, which is fully online and remote, all while working as a quality tech and having an industry position. This individual should seamlessly graduate with their four-year degree and maybe continue into graduate school, maybe pursue an MBA, and ultimately creating a nice hiring feedback loop for our students and colleges. Yeah, so for our clinical professions, this is a very exciting area for both our Miramar and Southwestern MLTT programs. New state legislation for our licensed MLTs will eventually accelerate their career into the four-year laboratory licensing world. And as you can see from this pathway, we introduced phlebotomy very early on as a pathway certification. You need this to enter into the MLTT programs. And right now, biotech firms are heavily investing in mobile phlebotomy as a response to the pandemic, as well as direct-to-consumer testing initiatives. I mean, you can think of all the people who are in oncology studies, liquid biopsies, and can't go to the doctor right now. This is a very needed profession. From there, our students can work as a lab clerk, working on their MLT requirements in parallel. And then once a licensed MLT, our students can transfer into a variety of online CLS bachelor's programs. We've been developing a great partnership with National University for our MLT to CLS student pathways. This should be a really good opportunity for our transitioning students. And then when the student graduates, they can apply for their CLS license with the state and accelerate clinical training. As you can see, the salary ranges are quite good for this clinical profession and are in very high demand, especially with their current pandemic. Okay, sector recommendations. We're concentrating on specific process areas of the regional model. First off, we're looking at K-12 partnerships. So this is increasing our efforts in dual enrollment, it's increasing our efforts in articulation agreements for both biotech and medical lab early coursework. Second area, we're looking at seamless articulation to the biomanufacturing bachelor's degree. So this includes either the addition of coursework or modifying existing coursework at your regional colleges. 3 courses that are campus-based and have the potential to bottleneck enrollment. And this is where regional strategies will come into play. So we're also looking at other 2+2 strategies. Individuals that are looking for clinical laboratory or quality pathways will benefit from other 2+2 partnerships, especially if they're out of practical commute range or need additional credits to get into biomanufacturing. Also, we see an opportunity to discuss partnerships with San Diego State and their campus. The one thing that they don't have up there is laboratory sciences, and that might be something to explore, definitely adding equity to the students at Imperial Valley College. And finally, targeted program marketing and advisory meetings. I mean, the basis is you can't be what you can see. And there are so many satisfying jobs in the sector where you don't need to be an engineer, you don't need to be a PhD, or a surgeon, doctor, etc. Plenty of opportunities, even in the sector that students need to learn about. Marketing and new professional development meetings, as well as advisory committees, will be a really important investment. Okay, so here's our regional institution map. So all of our institutions teach life sciences. We've got 2 licensed medical laboratory training programs, Southwestern and Miramar, 2 active biotechnology programs at Miramar and Miracosta, and our 4-year program in biomanufacturing at Miracosta. So the rest of the slides moving forward are going to be our recommendations locally. So we have recommendations for all regional institutions and specific recommendations for Miracosta, Miramar, Imperial Valley, and Southwestern. We also have recommendations for K-12 partners and how to set up infrastructure to really provide a start to finish pathway. So that's our presentation. Thank you so much for hearing about our sector. I'd like to thank WDC, all of its participants, and the regional consortium for providing us this platform to share all these sector opportunities with you, and hopefully we can make a difference for our students. Thank you.
Okay, so any questions for Keau regarding life sciences and biotech and the information that he shared? And Hilda, I see your question. We'll use that as a transition question to Connie's presentation. But any questions for Keau?
Great, thanks everyone.
Okay, so what we'll go ahead and do is if you have any questions, we'll save them for the end. If you think of something between now or during Connie's presentation. So with that, Keau and Connie, in the chat, Hilda said, as a regional director, how does your role work with the individual colleges? And do you collaborate with the counselors on each campus to disseminate information? So can either of you answer that question, please?
Hey, Oda, that's a great question. We do work with the counselors and job placement case managers, as well as your faculty. And we'd like to work more with individual counselors at all of our specific colleges, especially the ones that are teaching programs towards the BDP. So I'd like to speak with you more about this and you know, how we can just create a robust pathway.
Thank you, Keau. Connie, would you like to answer that question as well?
Sure. Thanks for the question, Hilda. Yes. So primarily, one of the roles that we have as regional directors is also to support our programs. So I work very closely, intimately with the program directors, deans, faculty, and with the counselors. We have been able to just, you know, have some conversations, but not intimately. We don't work. I don't personally work with them intimately, but it's something that probably that we should improve.
Thank you, Keau and Connie. You know, I would say a large portion of the work from the regional directors is definitely directed towards faculty and the deans and so forth, and some of the special programs. And so definitely one of the areas that we can expand into is working with counselors. So thank you for the question. You know, I think it's always part of our hope that the information that we're sharing with the deans and the job placement case managers and other folks on campus would work its way to counselors, that it would work its way to everybody based on your communication channels. But obviously, sometimes there are some challenges with that. So thank you for the question. Great. So Connie, would you like to share your presentation with us now, please?
Yes. Give me a second. All right. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. And for those that are having lunch, bon appetit. It's lunchtime. So thank you so much, Keau. I'm always fascinated to hear your presentation and the great need for biotech and life sciences. So anyhow, my name is Connie Lafuente. I'm the regional director for the health sector in San Diego Imperial region. And I'm very excited to share this information with you. As a regional director, I'm responsible of engaging employers to assess the needs, gaps, and opportunities for current and future workplace. So for the past year or couple of years, in collaboration with the Centers of Excellence, which is the research arm for our community colleges, we have developed a health sector profile and strategy, and I'm excited to share this with you. So for today, I'm gonna go over what is the health sector, the methodology that we use to conduct labor market research, trends and recommendations. Just really briefly, the health sector accounts for 136,000 jobs in the San Diego Imperial region. And there are approximately 7,900 establishments in the region, making up 9% of California's healthcare businesses. This sector is projected to grow by 15%, so like around 20,000 jobs in the next 5 years. And healthcare is considered a resilient sector. When most people think of the health sector, they think of doctors and nurses, but in fact, there are over 48 occupations under all these main categories. So those 48 plus programs are being taught throughout community colleges. For instance, under the nursing category, we have certified nurse assistants, home health aides, licensed vocational nursing. Under emergency medical services, we have emergency medical technicians, emergency medical responders, paramedics, firefighters, etc. In the last 10 years, from 2009 to 2019, San Diego County's population grew by 10%, from 3.1 million to 3.3 million. And SANDAC predicts that the number will increase to 4 million by 2050. During the same time period between 2009 and 2019, the county's aging population 55 plus grew by 33%. So on that, it's estimated that by 2029, that it will reach to approximately 1 million. In Imperial County, we can see similar trend. We can see that the overall population grew by 6.5% and the aging population grew by 28%. And it is important to note that the older population is growing at a much higher rate than the rest of the population. In both counties, the 55 plus population tripled the rate of growth from the current population. This means that as the aging population increases, the greater will be the demand for healthcare services and for healthcare workers. So this is a methodology. Keau shared this with you, and I'm just going to briefly talk. There were 5 different steps to this process, and they were primarily working with the Centers of Excellence. And we are at the very end where the gray box where it says sharing and receiving feedback. So we are in the process of sharing the information as well as getting feedback from our partners. And this is part of the presentation that I'm making today, is to share this information with you. As part of the research that was conducted, we assessed the in-demand jobs, the skill sets and emerging occupations, and the Centers of Excellence created this sector recommendation brief. And part of the brief includes the list of institutional educations and programs that offer the core occupations, the foundational occupations, which are home health aides, medical assistants, certified nurse assistants in San Diego County. And as you can see through our community colleges, we have 6 colleges that offer these foundational occupations, and there are 11 private schools that offer the same. Through research also, we found out that when analyzing the labor market demand versus the labor market supply, there is a supply gap of 1,019 approximately jobs in San Diego County. So meaning that there is a great need for these occupations. And through research also, we looked at the hourly earnings. And if we look at the entry-level hourly earnings, we see that these are below our living wage for a single adult in San Diego County. And if we look at the median hourly ratings, we see that they're also below the living wage in San Diego County, with exception of the medical assistants. In Imperial County, it was very interesting to see that the entry-level hourly earnings were above the hourly wage for single adults. And as well that the median hourly earnings is above. So that was great news. But this chart also shows us that there's going to continue to be a great need for these foundational occupations: home health aides, nurse assistants, and medical assistants. So in addition to the research part, I conducted stakeholder interviews as well as a focus group. And this is a sample of healthcare facilities that I engaged to validate information. And it is important to mention that some of these health centers are large networks, such as the San Isidro Health Center, for instance, has 42 program sites. And Family Health Centers of San Diego has 23 clinic locations throughout San Diego County. So that means that I met with several key leaders, between 6 to 8 of them on each site, which with the purpose of validating the market supply gaps, opportunities, assess trading needs, identify knowledge, skills, and abilities for healthcare workers, and additionally to discuss the in-demand occupations, emerging occupations, and opportunities for work-based learning. We also talked about clinical placements, internship opportunities, and I recruited several of them to be part of panel interviews. Once I collected all this information, I worked closely with our Centers of Excellence, which is the research arm for our community colleges, and with Kevin from the regional consortia, so we can go ahead and analyze further what we were hearing. And what we were hearing was that there were some emerging occupations. And as you can see here, you will also see listed that we had representation from Imperial County and El Centro. Oops. So one of the things that we kept hearing, I apologize for that, was that there was a great need for patient care coordinators. So here are some of the job duties and functions, but primarily they facilitate communication between patients, family members, medical staff, administrative staff, social service organizations, and other healthcare providers. They make sure that patients access their care when they need to access, and they are familiar with community services and resources that are available to them. And these individuals work in the different types of settings. They work in the ambulatory care setting, such as clinics, nonprofit organizations, hospice facilities, insurance companies, large dental offices, and long-term facilities. And some of the required job duties are listed here, and I'm just going to mention a couple of them for the sake of time. But one of them is meet with patients and families regarding treatments, procedures, medication, and continuity of care. Assist care team with setting goals for quality assurance best practices. Provide community resources and referrals for continuity of care. And so on. So since this is an emerging occupation, there were no SOC codes, which is, I don't know if you're aware of the SOC codes, but that's more like a standard occupational classification, which is a federal code provided by the agency to classify workers into occupational categories. So since we didn't have those, more research was needed. So we looked into research at all these different types of job postings and the variations for a patient care coordinator. After further research, we found out that the patient care coordinator in San Diego median hourly wage was above the living wage, which was great news, as well as the experienced hourly earnings was approximately $30. In terms of the labor market demand, the number of online job postings with the keywords patient care coordinators, we could see that there was great demand between 2010 to 2019. As you can see, in 2010, there was a need for 574 of them, and in 2019, there's a need of 2,500 patient care coordinators. And when looking under the job posting for care coordinators, we can see also there is a need. It's not as impressive as for the patient care coordinators, but we can still see that there were 114 job postings in 2019. So when looking at, where is this patient coordinator fall? This is exactly where it falls right now currently in the workplace. So if you look at the right-hand side career pathway, we're looking more of a nursing career pathway. And if you look at the admin level, we're looking towards your left side of the career pathway. So currently in the workplace, the patient care coordinator occupation is above the medical assistant, medical secretary, medical billing, and certified nurse assistant, which are foundational occupations. As you can see, we have the nursing pathway, and sometimes certified nurse assistant might be tired of providing that one-on-one care to the patient, so they might want to jump into more the admin side. So this is a great opportunity for them to go ahead and do that. And they can continue on the career pathway into a business administration or health administration or public health. As we described earlier, the patient care coordinator serves as a liaison between the healthcare team, family members, and patients. So therefore, these were recommended subjects to provide to the students so they can acquire the skill sets to work in this occupation. And in order to validate these, we conducted a focus group. And the focus group also mentioned that it was very important to have these skill sets, but in particularly, they highlighted the cultural competency and patient advocacy skills. They said that was very critical to be able to work with patients. The focus group, when we inquire about the different knowledge and skills and abilities that they needed to do this occupation, they went ahead and they described all of these as being key skills that are needed for that type of occupation. And I want to pause on this slide briefly because it doesn't matter really which occupation in the healthcare system you work. These are very basic skill sets that are needed. So for instance, communication skills, verbal, written, bilingual, critical thinking, problem solving, medical terminology, billing and coding, high level attention to detail, ability to multitask, ability to work in a team environment, organizational and time management skills, basic working knowledge of insurance coverage, insurance eligibility, sensitivity to the needs and situations of multicultural populations, resourceful computer skills. So when working with high school students, these are great skills to emphasize so they can utilize these as they move on into the workplace. So some of the colleges that in San Diego County and Imperial provide these foundational occupations, which are great, and they can go ahead and provide this new occupation, the patient care coordinator, because they already have these foundational occupations. So we have Palomar College, Miracosta College, San Diego Mesa, Southwestern, San Diego Continuing Education, And in Imperial, we have Imperial Valley College. So the overall recommendations that we provided to the colleges was to adopt, develop the patient coordinator program, engage subject matter experts and faculty to assess current course content. And that includes align curriculum to KSAs from employer engagement, modify, expand, or add courses, develop non-credit options, especially colleges who do not have these foundational occupations, and consider an online program to offer flexibility for incumbent workers. Each college received specific recommendations, just like Keau shared with you. But for the sake of time, I just wanted to share with you some overall recommendations. And that's for me for now. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Connie. Any questions from any of the attendees for Connie or also for Keau if you thought of a question over the last few minutes? And keep in mind, we're happy to answer specific questions to your college or high school. Okay, so I'll give you guys about 30 more seconds to either type questions or unmute yourself and ask. And if we don't have any more questions, then we'll go ahead and wrap up our session for today.
Kevin, I noticed the chat that says it was disabled. Is it just on my end?
So chat within the Zoom was disabled, but not within Whova.
Okay, got it. Sorry.
Very good. Well, thank you everybody for attending today. We truly are grateful to each of you. Hopefully you plan on attending sessions tomorrow as well. We wanted to remind each of you as you log out to please make sure that you take the time to complete the survey at the end to give us feedback so we know how to plan and improve for next year's conference. But thank you again to our presenters and to all of you for attending, and we hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you, everyone.